Morning, everyone. So, in this video, we're going to look at a list of weaknesses and strengths that I thought of for myself about 5 months ago. But more importantly, I'm going to talk about what I think is truly my greatest weakness in this game, and just maybe how it makes me feel. Why do I feel like it's my weakness? Where does it come from? And what can I do about it? And so you can see some things here. I put weaknesses and strengths. Not too much to go over. If you want to watch the video, I talk more in depth about all of them. I think what I've learned in the last 5 months is one, there's always things you can do better. And I think if I want to kind of go out to the community, because people have spoken to me, and I've obviously spoken to a lot of people about what I think a big weakness of people is that they don't understand where their games went wrong and they focus on the wrong stuff completely. So, you know, if you're just out there and you're starting with an affiliation, go copy somebody's list, right? Go just straight up copy somebody's list and just play games with it, right? Um, don't, I think even myself, you start a new affiliation, even if you go copy somebody, as a base and then make it your own, you spend so much time playing with maybe the crisis or the ninth and 10th splash that you kind of get inside your own head, right? And you don't first off go play games, right? And so you'll say to me, "Oh, I can't play that many games, right? I played 18 games this month, and month's not even over, right? I play like 2 games every 3 days, so I play a lot of TTS. So I get the games in. If you can't get the games in, it's very difficult, and this is what makes it hard, especially for a game like MCP where you're not going to get the perfect situation for these splashes every time you play unless you set up a game with somebody where you're like, hey, I want to test a D shape on my extracts at this point level, and I want to run this team to see how it fares, right? Because that's another problem too. A lot of your 8, 9, 10th models are for very specific situations that you won't get all the time, and also the layer on top of that is if you force them into the situations they're not supposed to be in, you're gonna get the wrong answer, and it's going to look dumb, and you're gonna cut them when you shouldn't. So my advice to people who are starting out, like there's most affiliations, there's most teams you can play with like 7 models. And you can fill out 90% of situations. Sure, it might not be ideal. Sure, you might have, I don't know. I can't make up a great example off the top of my head. But sure, you might be like, oh, I'm playing Ancient One as a 4, and it could be a splash, but I don't know what splash I want. But playing Ancient One there might give you the sense of, hey, how is she as a model? That's great, because she's one of maybe a core model in Convocation, which I don't know if she is. But not only are you learning her, but now you can kind of get enough experience to take away and say, oh, I need a model that is, I don't know, more tanky or faster on this map or can control people more, something like that, or has a steal. And then you can go and say, what splashes do that for me? And then I put them in my list. I think people start at they try to make their list perfect when they don't even know what their list does and how to use it. They don't even know what perfect is because they don't know what to put there. And then people chase losses a lot. I think that's another big one. You lose a game, and you feel like it was because of either your team or your splash or your opponent, and then you try to like reconfigure your entire list and awareness of the game around your last loss, and it could just be you just played bad. You didn't pick the right models. Some matches are just hard. That's the honest truth. There are some setups. There's rarely a team that can fight on every single thing with like good odds, right? A good team at the end should be able to handle most things. But even if I have a very well-rounded team that I think can handle any situation, it doesn't mean there won't be hard situations. I don't love playing intrusions, viruses, or something with my convocation. I can do it, but I don't love it. And so if I lose on something like that, I can't sit there and be like, oh my god, I need to scrap my whole team. I need to change everything. Maybe it influences a splash if I have a spot or a team selection. I think you have to look at that. But I think a lot of people chase their last loss and like keep thinking about it and be like, my team's fault. I got to change all this stuff. And a lot of times you just picked maybe the wrong models, had a bad game plan, or they blame dice. I mean, that's the worst thing you can do is just completely blame dice and be like, oh my God, this roll went bad and I lost the game. Blah, blah, blah. There's always something you could do more. And it's hard. It's very iterative. You got to play a lot of games. It's not easy to practice this game. Like, because situations are so rare, right? I'll give you a better example. Warhammer, right? Back in the day, Warhammer had some objectives, but for the most part, you just play the game. You have a set list. You play against somebody else. Deployment's pretty standard, like 12 inches. It's about who kills more. And so if you play 10 games of Warhammer, you're getting 10 of the exact same list. You get a feel for it. You get some matchups, depending on what you play, obviously can help player that out. But nothing else changes, and that's just how it is. It's like playing chess, right? The setup of chess, other than if you're white or black, doesn't change. And so you can kind of grind that out, whereas MCP, there's a lot more variables. So not only do you have to play more games, but you do have to then be good enough to think about the other situations that you haven't experienced yet, but you could, and how you would handle them. And so I actually think it does create a very difficult situation for some players to get better at. Anyway, that was kind of a ramble to kind of get to my point, which is my biggest weakness as an MC player, in my opinion. And this is after a lot of games and a lot of self-reflection, talking to my team. I am too aggressive when I don't need to be. And I hate that about this game. It's probably my least favorite thing about MCP if I had to pick. And it's not a rant, but I mean, there's negative things about all the games I've played. But if I had to pick one thing about MCP that I dislike, it's that there is too much incentive when you are winning to do nothing. Or just to like try to hide and run away. And I hate that. And it's very anti how I like to play games. But I also understand that it's how you win the game sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes it's how you have to win the game. And so I'll kind of bring it back to why I think that is a problem or where it stems from. And then we'll talk about we'll just talk about it. Just casual conversation. First off, I've been playing war games, I'm 35, for like 20 some years. And, I was playing in big GTs when I was like, I think my first one was like, I was like 18 or something, or 17. And so I've been, back in the Warhammer days, fantasy is what I've mainly played for big tournaments. There was a paint score and a sportsmanship score, and that's not something you see I don't think you need them in these games, but you had them there. And also, winning games wasn't like win-loss. Like, really, to be fair, in MCP, whether you win by 1 or whether you win by 10 doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't even correctly gauge how close a game is. You could lose by 2 and the game was never close because they just kept a 1-point lead the whole time. And you can lose by 10, but it was on Research or Fisk, and you just, it didn't swing. It was a close battle, but they kept scoring the Fisk over you, stuff like that. That being said, it doesn't matter. It's win-loss. Are you undefeated? Warhammer, there's a sliding scale where you could win by more. And so, very early on, I don't paint well. I didn't get good paint scores. That's life. What did it mean? It means I had to play to win big. Like, there was people who could go 3 wins and 2 losses, but they painted so well they could come in the top 5. I couldn't do that. I mean, I had to win every game hugely if I wanted to win an event, for the most part, depending on how weighted the scores were. Hell, I once killed an event. Like, I crushed everybody I played. And again, this is not a bragging type thing, and then the paint scores were worth so many points that I came in like 6th place, and I was pissed. They did have best general awards sometimes back then, so that was at least something to chase for. The point I'm getting at is I'm very used to playing a game where I have to win by the most points possible, and it's a mindset I like to play with, period. I enjoy those kind of games. Now, one reason I left 9th Age, which was just Warhammer 8th edition, fan-made, blah, 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 whatever. I played a lot of 9th Age. I have videos up on it. The one thing I hated about 9th Age, if I want to go and, was because of that scoring system, because it wasn't win-loss, if you were in a bad matchup, And I think matchups in that game were a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? Like there were just straight up bad matches. Like you just couldn't. Like it just wasn't worth playing. Like it's not like MCP. I feel like most people have a chance most of the time, assuming you're smart enough on turn 0, turn 1 type stuff in roster building. This was like your list just doesn't stack up well, and you're just a bad match, particularly in team events. And your best course of action was to sit there in the corner and just try not to lose by a lot. So you get to the table and you have two options. You can say, all right, I'm going to go balls to the wall and try to win, and I have a 20% chance to get a big win and an 80% chance to get 0 points. Or I can sit here in the corner and I have a 90% chance to get 6 points instead of 20. It's like 6, it's a sliding scale. It's like 614. Right? And most people would do that because it's a team event and it's better for your team if you don't get crushed most of the time. But as a player, that sucks, right? Because it's so boring. Or you're the other way around where the enemy is trying just to sit there in a corner and not really play the game. They're just trying not to lose. And so I hated that. I thought it was boring. I think it's not good for the game. It's not exciting. And so, I think that kind of translates into Marvel where, I'm very, what's the word? I watch a lot of games on cuts and stuff, and it just saddens me a bit. I actually think that there are a lot of games of Marvel that just kind of suck. Like, I think we're lucky in a sense that it's a short enough game with enough variety and, like, flipping crisis and stuff. But there's just some games that suck to watch. They're not that exciting. They end too fast. There doesn't feel like there's enough that happened. Whether it's just Thanos bullshit that just feels lame. Like, fucking the Thanos in the TTS cuts is the fucking worst. It's so boring to watch, and it's uninspiring. Like, it makes me want to quit Marvel. I'm not going to. That's a bit extreme to say it, but it does. Like, it makes me so frustrated to watch it, and I know it's good, and I know I won't play it. I won't use it. But it just, and I get why people do it, and come at me with that bull crap of like, if you want to win, you do it, blah, blah, blah. It's just so uninspiring that it reminds me of like the people sitting in the corner in Warhammer. And I hate it. Now, some of the nuances when it's Thanos versus Thanos is kind of funny to watch. It kind of gets interesting. But generally speaking, I hate it. Same with CGR was very similar. It just didn't feel, I don't know. I think you get a lot less games. Sometimes with Marvel, I feel like you just end games and you're just like, okay, that wasn't that exciting. And same thing happens with extract stuff. Like somebody just has a really good extract turn 1 play with whether it's Wakanda bullshit or webs, and they go up 4-2 or whatever, and then they just kind of run back to their secure, and you're like, all right, this is cool. This is Marvel, baby. This is fun. And so I think because I dislike that, it's hard for me to do it. I can do it. It's not hard. Like, I'm not sitting here and being like, oh my God, how does this person pick up the extracts and then run to the corner and survive? Like, there's not some deep unlocking there that I'm like, oh my God, how I can't fathom how they do it. It's just like, I don't like to do it. But I need to do it. That's if I want to win games and I want to win them more consistently, I need to be able to assess the situation and go, man, I'm winning 5-2 this round. I have 3 extracts. They have 1. If I just run over here, like it's not even about just run. If I just run over here, do a little bit of control, do a key daze, stay on my side of the map and my secures, I will win. And sure, it's just, I just hate it. I don't know. This is more of a rant video, to be fair. I enjoy playing this game. I'm very excited for squad goals. It's just, I just sometimes need to like get out my hatred for some of this stuff, because else it'll boil up and I'll just be angry for no reason. But yeah, it's my biggest weakness. There's just, if I'm down by like 1 point, but I'm like have to go on the offensive and go get it, I feel like I play and my games are much better because either they're more dynamic and you feel like you're making plays and stuff like that to kind of win, key dazes, portaling, whatever you want to do. I think it's almost like when I'm out to a too fast of a start and I'm up too much, where I can't sit there and go, oh, I'm winning. I'm winning by 3. all right, if I just sit on my secure with my extra extract, they can't win. Now they have to come at me, and maybe they will, and maybe it works. And there is some play there in defending it. But sometimes I'm like, oh shit, I'll just dive their back point to get an extra point. And this has been happening for like a year. I mean, it happens a lot. Or sometimes I think the other side is like I'm not aggressive enough getting extracts early sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes, especially if it's like 6 points on the board, like Virus Gamma, I'm like, I'm not going to pick him up. I'll just fight him off. And then the enemy does it to me where they just run away. And I'm like, oh, my team can't get to him fast enough. It's too difficult to get it off of him. And then I lose because of that. I mean, that's kind of a game planning thing. So it's a huge weakness of mine. And I just need to rant about it. Why do I feel like it's a problem of mine? And I just dislike I dislike it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, oh my God, I hate it. I wish there was more. And I don't know. I guess in Malifaux is a good example. I don't have these like thoughts of Malifaux. Malifaux had his own issues with like activation control and stuff like that. But I felt like I could. I mean, I definitely got to the point where I got up enough that I couldn't lose. But it felt different. I don't know. There's something different about the way Malifaux winning felt compared to some of the ways you win in MCP. I mean, so Warhammer had, like I said, other games had its own issues too. So this is not just, oh my God, MCP sucks fault. It just sucks to like see it sometimes. I mean, I don't care. Listen, I know you got to hype up some of the casters with these games, but they hype up a game as if it's like super exciting and it's not. And so anyway, I think the TTS cuts the last 2 seasons have just been highly disappointing from a viewer perspective. I was in one of them. And it's just, and even I didn't even face CGR. I didn't even lose to it, so that was fine. It's just, I don't know. It just had like sour taste in my mouth. At least there was not LVO. Adepticon had no like Thanoses and stuff, so that was actually more exciting to watch. The web stuff was kind of boring a little bit. I don't even know what I like. I think I just like cool plays, and sometimes you just don't get a lot of them in these games. They're kind of like not decided from the beginning, but I don't know. I don't know how to put it anymore. I just need to get better about it. I feel like when I watch other good players who win, we'll say more consistently, I feel like I'm usually bored but understand. Does that make sense? I understand what they're doing, and I'm like, they're you pussy. And then it works. And I'm like, well, I guess it does work. Especially versus, like, I think if you're better than your opponent, like, it's to your advantage to get up and then make them try to beat you. And it's just, it's the defender's advantage, right? Like, you're up on the points. They have to move to kill you. You get 2 attacks back. Like, you can kind of fight back. If you're in the lead and they daze a bunch of people, you get a round to kind of punch them back in the face without being down too much. So, again, I get it. And I watched. I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, oh, they're sitting back. They safe grab this. They sit back. And like, it's just unfun. But you don't win that way. I mean, you don't win by scalping your strange across the board and one-shotting somebody and then scalping somebody else and then your strange dies, right? You would win more if you just scalped them away and walked away, potentially. Game state, it always depends. But yeah. I guess, how do I improve upon it? I think I just have to like look at, I have to sit there and be like, how do I win this game? How do I progress in the best way to make it difficult for my opponent? And there's times I do it. Like, this is not like every game I'm throwing myself to the wind and just dying. There's just some games where I'm just like, wow, how did I lose that? And I'm just like, something creeps up in me that like is looming there where I am not as control oriented. And some games I'm really good at it, where I'm like, oh, I'm controlling all this stuff, I'm pushing things away, and it is fun. I get it. It's not that as boring as I make it sound. I'm being a bit hyperbolic. What was the word? hyperbole. Well, you know what I mean. I'm being a little extreme with some of my opinions, and there is tactics in it, and there's just some fun stuff like pushing people way off, getting them away from you. Um, I don't know. I'll be better about it. I need to for my team. That's probably the thing that my team is probably giving, and for my consistency. I think that's what kind of sucks is I feel like my consistency is off, and it's usually rooted in some general like it's not the nuanced stuff that is killing me. I mean, there is always nuanced things I do wrong that I need to improve upon. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like I shoot myself in the foot a lot of the times, and my aggressiveness betrays me in a way, which is funny because that's why I feel like I lose to every type of player, but not like the worst of the worst, but I feel like I'm more susceptible to losing to like an average player with like maybe some big boy thing than I am. Like I feel like I almost play better versus good players because I feel like the way I play aggressively, if it's in a smart way, is actually more annoying. Whereas if I would just like if you lead, I don't know. Does that kind of I don't know if I'm making sense here, but I feel like that safe play stuff you can do with like Hellfire and whatever, get up early and hide, air quotes hide, is a lot better versus a mediocre player because you have the advantage of being up and they have to make better decisions against you. And a lot of times bad players can't handle they don't know how to go in, they don't know how to like extract points. I mean, this was very common in other games too where like if somebody was being very defensive like a gunline or something, it took a better player a lot of times to like dissect it and like get in there and destroy it. I think the same thing with MCP, where like if you get up early, like if the enemy is horrible at their early positioning, um, or anything like that, they're just done for, right? Like I feel like webs can be very consistently up there because a lot of things are very automatic. They're very fast. They're semi durable, and then when you really get somebody who's like knows what they're doing and knows how to go and get them, it becomes a lot more difficult for them. Um, Maybe the same with like the Wakanda Spirit of Wakanda stuff. You get up early, it's tough for a bad opponent to come back from it. Whereas if you play this more aggressive, like close game style, you're more likely to like make mistakes or I don't want to blame dice, but you put a little bit more in dice hands where you give them the chance to just fucking daze you and take your stuff and maybe you can't get back into it. And so I'd love to get better from a consistency sake because I feel like when I get most frustrated, it's because I'm losing games to players I feel like I should beat. And I feel like I made irrational like planning decisions on like on how I went about the game, as opposed to like I'm not really scared of most players. I'm not scared of people from like a top end. There's no player who I'm like this person's so good I can never beat him. I have yet to see something in a TTS stream game that I'm like, oh my god, this is unbeatable or unattainable. There's just good consistent play, and that's fine. I'm not, and that's compared to myself. I mean, I always have the opinion that I can beat anybody. I mean, I think you need that if you want to be up there in any game. So I'm not trying to disparage any of the good players I've watched. I'm just, it's like I watch the NBA and be like, I can't dunk, so I suck. I mean, I'm never going to be able to do this. Besides a lot of other things, but I don't watch TTS and go, oh wow, you know, I see some cool plays, but there's nothing crazy. I think the biggest thing is people are better like game planners. I actually think from a like small nuanced detailed like if you have to like get in the chaos, I don't think I think most people are what's the word I'm looking for? I think if there's a game of chaos, I am way better than most people at it. Not saying I will win every game of it, but I think if you really start to fuck shit up and like things are going like crazy, that's where I thrive in. I think when, you know, it's like in chess. I hate opening theory. I'm not good at chess, but I hate even the idea of opening theory and having to learn it to be good at chess. I think that's boring. But you give me a puzzle or, you know, an end game situation, that interests me a lot more than like the set piece, the set plays type stuff. Yeah, that's a good comparison. That's a good comparison, I think. But no, I'm having a lot of fun. I think, part of this rant is just to get it out of my system, to improve upon it. I can see it's there. I see some other things I need to do well. There's definitely some convocation specific things I want to get better about that I'll probably make a video on. But this is like the broader one that I've just been noticing. Playing to win. That is the thing. You don't get style points. And I need to tell myself that. You do not get style points. You do not. It doesn't matter if you did some sick ass strange play if you die and lose, right? That's really it. There's nothing else to say. It doesn't matter how good your Ultron activation is if you lose the game. So let's make the decisions to get better and let's keep going. Thanks for listening.